Hi, my name is Raina Sweeney, and I'm a certified professional coach. And I specialize in burnout, whether that is in your relationships at work or your internal burnout. This is my wife, Amy Garner.
Hi, my name's Amy. I'm a human resources professional. I've been in the field for probably longer than I'd like to admit, but 17, 18 years. And what has kept me interested in that field is primarily the way that humans interact, connect, network, and how those connections grow and change throughout people's careers and sometimes make people's careers.
And much like Amy, I am fascinated by human connection and the way that we move and walk through this world. I'm also a communication major and have studied human interaction for many, many years and find the science behind emotions incredibly interesting as well. Which brings us kind of why we're here talking today, because we met in a very magical way that had a lot to do with self-exploration, human connection, incredible timing, and yes, and a lot of elements just coming together all at once to create this absolutely magical moment of connection.
Yeah. We were at a holiday party, we just went through the 2022 holiday season. We were at a holiday party, we were telling the story of how we met, and we were thinking afterwards, reflecting on that event, and just recognizing how much joy and hope our story has been able to cultivate for the people that we share it with. So our goal today, and our theme, really, our family's goal for 2023 is to grow and cultivate joy. So hopefully sharing our story will resonate with you in a way that it resonates with our really cute dog, who you can't see right now, but that I am absolutely 100% bribing with treats. So she knows the game, and she knows if she barks, she gets a treat. So that's creating joy for her. So absolutely. That's great.
A little background music. So our story starts, our story starts in 2018. Although I think we'd both argue that it probably started centuries, lifetimes prior. We had both just gotten out of very serious relationships, very hard relationships that teach you a lot if you're willing to let them teach you a lot. They can make or break you. Yeah. And both of us chose to view those relationships as growth opportunities. And before meeting each other, we both took some time to ourselves, a little bit shorter than we thought it was going to be.
Right.
And that's okay.
But you don't pass this up.
We don't. You don't pass this up. Exactly. Both of us, I think, made the commitment we would stay single for a year.
At least. And the universe said, watch this.
Yeah. The universe said, think again. Yeah. And so in 2018, I had graduated with my degree in communication, and I was in this spot in my life where I had just left my previous relationship. My degree's finished. I'm in a transition space. The world's kind of my oyster. I get to decide where I want to go next. And so I decided to go on a 1.5-month road trip through Utah and Arizona, visiting all the national parks. I absolutely love nature. There's lots of connection there. Our little pup, Gracie May, agrees. And the road trip started off through Utah, and I was there for a few days, did a bunch of hikes, went and saw Canyonlands, absolutely gorgeous. And I was starting to do this meditation by the author of the book, You Are the Placebo. And in that meditation, it allows you to call in what you want in your life and what you want to create in your life. And unlike other meditations, I think where you kind of just visualize, and this one is you're actually feeling it, like the emotions associated with it. You're feeling it like it's actually there and present with you. And so I did the meditation, and I was focusing on a life that I wanted to create. I was focusing on a life that was full of love and compassion and connection. I wasn't as specific as I could be at that moment. It was still the beginning of my trip. The next morning, though, I woke up and the first thought in my mind was, I need to go to Sedona. Skip the rest of Utah, skip the rest of Arizona. You need to go to Sedona right now. I packed up everything in the car. I was camping at the time. It was a beautiful morning. And drove the entire day down to Sedona, Arizona. And I don't know if you've been to Sedona, Arizona, but
Go.
Yes, go if you feel called. It has a mind of its own, an energy of its own, and I went through an incredible healing experience while being there. I proceeded to get really, really sick. I had a 104 temperature for about a week. It was quite interesting. Experiencing all these energy shifts, and I was getting massages and doing a lot of internal work, getting a lot of guidance. And I went and did that same meditation at the bottom of Bell Rock, which is also where we got married years later. And I called in this relationship that I thought was not possible. I thought didn't exist. I had no role models of what that would even look like. I had never seen that in any relationships around me. I had little snippets of it with, some of my closest friends and their partners, but not any really good representation. But I said it was going to be this or nothing. I was at a point in my life where I wasn't willing to sacrifice myself anymore for love, to be in love, to be loved, to be accepted. And so I created this relationship in my mind's eye, and this meditation allowed myself to feel it. And the things that I was focusing on were, this person needs to be as good of a communicator as me or more. Which you are, and you know it. Be as emotionally intelligent as me or more. Check. Be
Dashingly handsome.
We leave those parts out, but you fulfill it anyways.
Right.
That's the cherry on top. So communication, emotional intelligence, know what their non-negotiables are, which a lot of people in this world don't really know what those are. We think like it's putting the dishes in the dishwasher correctly, when it's actually the way that you communicate, your love language, your values, knowing your boundaries.
Yeah.
And so those were just some of the things that I was focusing on to really cultivate this relationship. I wanted it to be an equal partnership. I didn't want it to be a relationship where I felt like I was pulling the other person up with me. And that there was room for both of us to really be who we are in our full expression of who we are. And to really feel as though being with you, I can be my full authentic self, and you being with me, you can be your full authentic self.
Right.
So that was in Sedona, October of 2018. That trip ended. I went and had a girls' weekend in Vegas, as one does, right?
Sedona, Vegas.
Yeah.
Easy transition.
Very easy transition. I went home. I was in Truckee, California at that time, and I went to sleep and woke up the next morning and had this overwhelming feeling that I had to move to Denver. And it was not move to Denver on, Friday, move to Denver now. Like, say goodbye to your friends, pack up all your stuff, and go. And so that's exactly what I did. That day, I invited my friends over, said goodbye. The next day, I had everything packed up and in my little U-Haul in the back of my car, and drove all the way over to Colorado, to Denver. I got here the next day, and there was a huge snowstorm in the mountains, which my little car pulling a U-Haul would not have made it through at all. I mean, I was going 45 miles up the big mountains, like semi trucks were passing me.
Perfect. Definitely safe.
I was driven by something else. And so I got here, and it just instantly, something felt like home. job and apartment fell in place. I had one contact here in Denver. She kind of showed me the ropes of Denver. We went out one night, even though I was kind of really not wanting to.
So hold on
yeah.
before you go there. So let me just set the stage for kind of where I was in that. I had been in a 7-year relationship, was going through a divorce, and in that relationship, I really lost myself and compromised my values, and I was not willing to do that again. So I was keenly focused during the time that I was prior to separation, divorcing, living single. I was really focused on figuring out who I am, who my true self is, working to check in with the people who knew me the best and get their perceptions of me so that I could reframe what it is a relationship would be in my life. You know, I was, you know, I'm a kid raised in the 80s, and even though I'm gay as the day is long, like, I wanted that moment where the Disney princess finds the Prince Charming, and that really wasn't happening for me. And as Raina said, you know, it was hard to find representation of healthy, committed lesbian relationships. At that time, you know, I think the show that we had was either Queer as Folk or the L Word, and those were those are made for TV, so they're meant to be dramatic. There's meant to be, you know. And I was raised in South Louisiana, so representation of committed, long-term developed lesbian relationships was this. You know, my name's Amy, and here's my roommate, and that's not a way that I was willing to live. So I was really searching to find what is it beyond identifying as gay and being out, you know, beyond that as table stakes, what is it that a partner has to have, or do I even want to be in a relationship? Because I had been in a relationship longer than I had been single in some of years in my life, and I thought, you know, now's the time. I'm in a cool city, got this great little dog, we go on a bunch of hikes, lots of adventures, and maybe it's just us. We just do us. And I was really not as, I didn't have all the spiritual tools that Raina had been exposed to at that time. So I was listening to my Super Soul podcast, and I was journaling, going on lots of hikes, spending lots of time in nature, and really trying to get myself grounded with me. And I had made the commitment that I was going to be single for a considerable period of time, minimum a year. And I would not leave this house or even consider allowing even friends to come over and talk about relationships or anything until my divorce was final. And so I had been out, I think this was the second time that I was going out to the club scene in Denver. And I was going out to meet a friend, and it was bro night. We were going out, have drinks with friends, catch up. My buddy had just gotten back from deployment, and we were focused on one another. So then we end up at the same bar in Denver, Colorado. Shout out to Pride and.
So for me, when I went out that night, there was something internal that was guiding me. My mind was definitely of the, I'm not ready to date. I don't want to do, what's the point of going out tonight? You know, it's a dating scene, all the things. But there was definitely something in me that was like, okay, just go out. I did the whole Cinderella thing. I'm going to stay out till midnight, and that's my cutoff time. I threw on the most comfortable pair of leather leggings that I have, in a cute little sweater and some heels, and frisked my hair, and I was like, okay, no effort, going out, just gonna, open a window, not even open a door. I'm just gonna open the window and see what the Denver scene looks like. That's it. That's all I'm doing tonight. And so my friend picked me up, and we get to this bar, and we get a couple drinks, and there's this little cute bar table that we're standing at and just chit-chatting back and forth. And she's talking about something, and I think, okay, I'm just going to look around the room and see, or she wasn't talking, she was actually looking at her phone. I'm like, that seems very rude to look around while someone else is talking. But no, she's looking at her phone because I think I have to go pick up some friends. Anyways, so I just take a moment to look around the room, and I'm looking at the scene, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of great people here, I'm sure, but I'm not sure any of these people are for me. And I turn and look at the bar, and as I do that, she turns and looks at me, and we lock eyes, and it's like, you know, the corniest, beautiful love
Room
story
stops.
movie. The world,
Yeah.
the room stops.
Yeah.
Like, everything goes silent. We're
Everybody
locked on
else is
each
a
other.
blur. Yeah.
And I get this overwhelming sensation of, there you are. And in that moment, I freeze. And I realize, oh my God, I'm staring at this woman who's at the bar. And I don't know what to do. And I haven't done this in so long, but also, like, make sure that she knows that you like her. I don't smile. I don't know what happened with my face, but... And then I quickly looked away. But apparently it was enough, because not moments later...
So we lock eyes, and I see her, and everything about her face seems completely normal. So I don't know where that comes from.
I'm not a nervous person. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I'm not a nervous person either. You know, I grew up in recruiting, and you know, work in a room. That's child's play. So I look over. Coincidentally, my friend is being hit on by somebody else. So all of a sudden, she's okay with it not necessarily being bro night or whatever. But so I'm at the bar, and I turn and I see Raina, and we lock eyes, and I think, yep, this is happening. Okay. I just feel this overwhelming, I need to talk to this woman. I don't know what that means. I'm not prepared. I don't have any game. I don't have any lines like stored up, ready to go. Also not a drinker. But decide in that moment, the best decision that I can possibly make is to take a shot. So definitely did that. And then I decide that I'm just going to keep it casual, right? Like, I'll be smooth. That's something I can do. So Raina, as she said, is at this bar table, kind of, 20 feet or so from the bar. So I decide that the best way for me to happen over is just kind of, float through the room a little bit. So I'm floating through the room, I meander over, and just so happens that my friend is on the other side of this table. So I decide to cut in between Raina and the woman that she's talking to, her friend that she came to the bar with, and check on my friend across the table. So I come from behind, hey buddy, how you doing? You need a drink? You good? You good? Everything's good? Oh, hey, my name's Amy. And she's smiling at me, but I'm not. Again, I don't have any game. So, or I didn't. Okay, so maybe I didn't.
You had game for me.
Right.
I mean, everything you did was absolutely perfect. I mean, from the way that you introduced yourself. I mean, she pulled out her phone. What'd you say?
So, what happened was the woman that Raina was talking to, was very clearly, from my perspective, sharing some energy that she was interested in Raina. I'm not sure that Raina was interested in reciprocating that, but I suddenly felt like, oh no, I interrupted something. And so quickly I pull out my phone and say, I'm not looking for a number one, I'm looking for a number two. And I have a picture of our dog as my screensaver, and I'm like, look everybody, this is my number one. Which made complete sense at the time.
Which in my mind, I thought, okay, challenge accepted. It worked pretty well.
Better response than one could have hoped for in
like
in
I
that
said,
fumbling.
your game was my kind of game.
Right. I was honest. It was honest at the moment. You
Yeah.
know, it really
Take the
was.
pressure off.
Yeah.
You know, you approached me like a human being, and you know, I didn't feel like I was being hit on. I felt like you were trying to get to know me, and I was making sure that I smiled a lot and touched her arms a lot to be like, I like you, I'm interested.
I had no awareness of. I have no idea if it was the vodka shot, and I just suddenly couldn't feel my lips because I do think I'm allergic to alcohol, but so I have no awareness of that, but. So we're talking, and there's...
I absolutely love that our own internal dialogue about how we met is so not how we experienced it. I mean, I saw you come up as this, like, self-assured, grounded, super charming, very charismatic. I mean, you had all the right things to say, you did all the right things, and your internal view of yourself was like, stumbling, and I don't have any game, and I don't know what to say. And the way that you viewed me was not the like, I don't know what's going on, trying to like make sure, and I'm nervous, and my stomach, and all the things.
Which is so not how you present.
Right?
As this confident, grounded, I'm Raina, take it or leave it. But I mean, I was feeling myself to some degree because I did have a shot and cowboy boots. So there's that. There's that. But so we're chit-chatting, and you know, I've had a drink, so suddenly I have to pee very badly. And so I just run off. But I am, by all accounts of my measure, intoxicated. So what felt like 10 minutes was probably 45 in trying to A, find the restroom, B, remember the code, and all the subsequent things that it takes to use the restroom. So I thought we hit it off. I thought we were, you know, having good conversation, but I come back from the restroom.
And I left.
Nowhere to be found at all. So I'm like, okay, well, that was rude.
But remember, I was going and I was opening windows. I was not even opening a door that I could even possibly walk through. And I thought to myself, you know what? If this is meant to be, because I'm very interested and very curious, then it's meant to be, and we're going to see each other again. And so I just trusted and left it up to that. And the friend that I went there with, we went to go pick up some more friends, and it's kind of known that you go to the bar first, and then you go to this club, and you go dancing afterwards.
I don't know if you know this, but lesbians are not the most reliable clientele when it comes to the bar scene. Because once we couple, we stay home with our adopted kitten. That is an actually true stereotype. So there are two Fridays, the first Friday and the second Friday of the month. This is pre-COVID. Who knows how things are now. But this was second Friday, so it starts at a bar. But if you want the party to continue, it's known that the next club that you go to is where the dancing will occur.
Yeah. And so we go pick up some friends. We go to the club. It's probably like, I don't know, an hour and a half-ish later. And I'm on the dance floor. I love to dance. Anybody who knows me knows that you put me on the dance floor and joy exudes from my body.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Same. Don't need anybody else, by the way. Just me and the DJ.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so I'm dancing, and I'm in my own little groove, and I bump up against somebody, and I turn around, and there she is. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I see her dancing, and I was like, yeah, I think we could totally do this. And so we proceed to dance the whole night. She kind of like flutters away and comes back, and it's midnight, and I'm like, okay, I told myself midnight was my hard stop. I'm going to keep that commitment to myself. I'm going to keep that boundary with myself, and I'm going to go home. And so I go over to her, and I said, hey, I'm going to head out for the night.
And I say, well, am I ever going to see you again?
And I say, well, do you want to see me again?
Absolutely. But what does your girlfriend think about it? Because I still don't know at this point if the woman that she showed up at the other bar with is someone of significance in her life or what.
And I said, who? And she's like, that one. And I was like, what? No, we're not together.
So I say, put your number in my phone. And as she's putting her number into my phone, with my infinite wisdom, an amazing game, and drunken stupor, because by this point I've had at least 2 more shots, which is obliterated for
You're
me.
not seem intoxicated at all.
I mean, I'm pretty, I keep it pretty cavalier when drinking. But so I, again, with my lack of forethought in the game, I say, listen, lady, I'm 35. I'm not going to play games. I'm not going to wait 3 days. I'm going to text you tonight.
And my heart went, oh, thank God, someone who doesn't play games. This is perfect. Good.
I did.
And I go home, and I'm laying in bed, and I get her text, and it's very sweet. And I think, okay, so if you, I know, Gracie May, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing on your mind is her, you can text her. So I go to sleep, and I wake up frantically searching for my cell phone. And I find my cell phone, and I text her, and it starts this whole string of texts. And anybody else who knows me, I'm not the best texter, or maybe I'm not the most long, elongated texter. Yeah, I'm more of to like the point texter. So this is a big thing that we're carrying on a conversation for the majority of the day over texts. The chemistry is flowing through text as much as it possibly can. I end up.
Text message.
Did we go on a date before I left for Hawaii?
I'm pretty sure I called you.
No, we did go on a date before.
I'm pretty sure though I
call me?
called you because my Southern gentleman roots came out, and I had to ask you on a date properly.
Right.
But I did ask you.
You did ask me on a date properly.
properly.
I had never been asked on a date like that. That was so formal. I loved it.
Make sure you have an emergency contact and that someone knows where you are. I'm a stranger. But
it was a lot more sweet and romantic than that.
But less creepy. But I did ask you on a date, and so we had that sort of set, and it was actually before you left.
It was before I left. You're right. Yep.
And our first date was absolutely magical, and a conversation for another topic. But
I think there's one thing to point out there, though, is, as much chemistry as we felt, you were talking a lot about being raised in the church and how that was very foundational for you. And I was raised on a hippie commune. Very, very different. I didn't know anything about what it would be like to be raised with religion or in the church, or we kind of had our own belief system and our own spirituality, but it seemed very, very different. And kind of going back to one of the things that I was cultivating for my next relationship, that I wanted to be on the same page spiritually. We could call things different names, but at the foundation of it, that was really something that was important to me that I hadn't had in a previous relationship. And so by the end of our first date, I'm thinking, okay, this woman is incredible, and I really need to gut check myself, because if we don't align on our core values, I can't even entertain like dating. I said, this or nothing. And so we have our first date. It's absolutely wonderful. It's hours and hours and hours and hours long. It's right before Thanksgiving. I end up leaving for Hawaii for Thanksgiving with some really good friends and their kids. And on that trip, a conversation about you was brought up, and I was telling
she was thinking about me.
I was very much. I was telling the husband of the couple that, I met this wonderful person and all the things, but I just don't think we're aligned spiritually. And he is a very spiritual man, and he looked at me and he said, I'm not sure that one can tell that off of just one conversation. Maybe you are more spiritually aligned than you think, and just see where it goes. Have fun. You're single for the first time in a lot of years. Just see where it goes. And I thought, you know what? That's so true. You can't judge something off of one conversation, off of one experience, off of one interaction with somebody. I know that.
And it's interesting that you bring the conversation to that point, because I'm actually listening to Gabrielle Bernstein's book called Super Attractor right now. And one of the things that she talks about is if you're trying to cultivate an incredible relationship, experience joy on every date. Allow room for joy on every single date because you're going to attract joy when you experience joy. And so it's amazing advice that your friend gave you to maybe just lean in, check it out. Why not? Like, keep it light because then what you attract will be exactly that. And maybe it's positive if you go to it with a positive mindset. And I was thinking, okay, this woman is amazing. She's raised on a hippie commune. I immediately flew home to see my mama for Thanksgiving because that's what you do. And I'm telling my mom about this woman, and my mom basically gave me the same advice: keep it light. We just got out of a main thing. We don't need to be rushing back into something like, whoa, you're talking about a lot of emotion for someone you just met. You've literally only spent a collection of maybe 6 hours with this person. Yeah. So which I thought again was great advice that, go into it with, see where it goes, be open, have fun, because then you're going to attract more fun. Mm-hmm. And ultimately what we came to quickly realize is that we were much more aligned spiritually, and that even though Raina was raised on a hippie commune in northern Washington and I was raised in a Baptist church in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and then later in Louisiana, our values were very similar.
Yep. Absolutely. And, one of the ways we found that out is another thing that was kind of on my wanting in a relationship, either the willingness to read The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz or have already read it. And when I had gotten back from that trip, or we both got back from our trips for Thanksgiving, and she sent me a photo of the cover of The Mastery of Love and asked me if I had ever read it before. And in that moment, I was like, okay. Sign number 1, very blatant. You can't construe that one. Go check that one off the list. Absolutely, 100%. And then we totally geeked out on that book and a couple of his other books that are incredible. And as our, go ahead.
But the central theme of that book and that knowledge that Don Miguel Ruiz shares is that you are responsible for your own happiness, and that there is nothing else in the world, a beautiful dog that loves to express herself, an amazing, incredibly supportive partner, and a fun, exciting job. These are all great things that I'm so blessed to have in my life, but these are not the things that determine my own happiness. And that was a big thing for both of us going into and cultivating new relationships. We had learned the hard way, right? That a partner wasn't going to make you happy. Yeah. And that you had to figure out how to name and claim that for yourself. And what does that mean? What is it that makes you happy? And for yourself, by yourself, right? And so it was an incredible opportunity for us to just kind of say, hey, this is the table stakes, or these are the table
setting
stakes.
The tone.
Yeah, setting the tone.
Absolutely, yeah. Setting the tone. And, our wedding vows years later are based off of a lot of things from that book. Yep. Before we got married, we read that book again together. Yep. This time, and really talked about some of the concepts in there that you are fully responsible. You are fully responsible for your happiness. I am fully responsible for my happiness. And together we support each other in each other's happiness. Right. And for me to create the space for you to actually take ownership of your own happiness, and for you to create the space for me to take ownership of my own happiness. Yeah. Which looks like me not trying to do things constantly that I think are going to shift your mood and then make you happy. Yeah. Because that's a version of emotional management. I can do things that bring you joy
Sure.
and that I know that you like, and I can create the space for you to have wonderful experiences. But if I am constantly concerned about your emotional well-being, then I am not focused on myself. I am
Right.
not focused on what is making me happy. And then suddenly my happiness is determined by how happy you are.
Right.
And so even if you are living the principle that you're responsible for your own happiness, if I'm not allowing that to happen and I'm constantly in the background trying to force you to be more happy because I need to be happy because when you're happy, then I'm happy, it's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure on somebody to constantly be in a good mood, to constantly, try to be this person that you think that your partner wants you to be when that's not who they fell in love with. They fell in love with a person they met who was independent and self-sufficient and
Doing their own thing.
doing their own thing. They were a whole person. And sometimes we get into relationships and, I catch myself because, I was trained to do that my entire life.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes I catch myself when you're in a bad mood being like, okay, she might be in a mood that, is uncomfortable for her. It's uncomfortable for me, but I don't need to take that on. And it's not my responsibility
Absolutely.
to then make her in a mood that is more comfortable, that feels better, that, I think that she should be in, because that's not creating space for you and your emotions.
Right. And maybe I want to settle in or lean into that emotion to, Raina always reminds me that emotions aren't bad. Even the hairy, scary ones that we're taught to stay away from. Anger, for example, is there to teach you something. When you're angry, that's really a sign that there's something that's in misalignment with your values. And you don't get burn up about something when everybody's treating you the way you expect to be treated, or the way that you would treat other people. That happens when there is a disconnection between what your expectations are, what you believe to be should be happening, and what's playing out in the world. So it's as you're talking, I remember the advice of my dad used to always tell me, don't let friends borrow money with the expectation that it's going to be paid back, right? So if you're bringing someone an offering, if you're bringing someone something and you genuinely want to help, the helping is the gift. That the fulfillment of the helping, the joy that you get from supporting and nurturing someone is the gift. You don't give someone happiness with the expectation of happiness in return. That's not how the cycle of emotion works. Just because you're happy doesn't mean I'm happy. Yeah. And a lot of times when we're talking about this with one another, we're just in a quick conversation, I'll say, I'll carry my own rock. Mm-hmm. So that means in this moment, I might need something. We're in a relationship. We constantly rely on one another. Can you take the dog to physical therapy? Can you pick up the dry clean? Whatever, right? Can you go to the grocery store? It's not that we don't engage and help one another, but when it comes to carrying an emotion or carrying my amalgamation of feelings and experiences through the day, I don't come home and just throw that at Raina and say, well, I had a really bad day today. Yeah. No, I carry my own rock. It's my responsibility to work that out. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I try to focus on is when I come home, that's something that I can continue to focus on, or that's something that I can say, I may have had a bad day, but I'm reserving my best energy for the things that matter the most in my life. And that's my wife, our cute little dog, our adorable kitten that surprisingly hasn't shown up, our amazing friends, our incredible community. And maybe there's something going on at work or in a challenge or conflict in a different relationship, family or otherwise. But I don't necessarily have to bring that or put the pressure to solve that on the things that are actually bringing me joy and reminding me about what I do value.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we say we've had bad days, and we've had uncomfortable moments in our days. We all have stress. We're humans. That's part of the human experience. And for me to acknowledge the fact that, sometimes we're working together in the house, and I know what kind of day you've had because I can sense your energy and I can hear your phone conversations a little bit, the tone of them.
Get fired up.
And so, I kind of already know that, like, there's been some complicated parts of the day or some uncomfortable parts of the day. But when you come home from the office, it's also on me to acknowledge the fact that, like, you had a whole entire day that I don't know about, and to give you some space to kind of just have some breaths when you get home too, and have some emotional space.
Right.
And what you said earlier about the giving without expectation, or and when I say expectation, I mean the end result of the giving, kind of like what you were saying, like giving of happiness. But it's also really important to understand that we can't give happiness. We can't give joy. Though we can't give emotions. We can create space for that to happen. I can throw you a wonderful birthday party and make this incredible scene with all of your favorite people, and you have a choice to show up and absorb the joy that's available.
Right.
You have a choice to show up and see all the hard work and effort that your wife put in. You have a choice to show up and engage with everybody and celebrate and allow people to celebrate you on your birthday. Some people don't like to celebrate their birthdays for numerous reasons.
That's okay too.
But to show up and be available for the joy and the happiness that's in that moment, I don't have any control over that.
Right.
All I can do is create situations where it's available if you want it, but it's your choice to feel it.
Right.
And coming from a person who has been a people pleaser, hi, my name is Raina.
My name's Amy.
Yep. That concept can be so hard, or a human giver, yes. That concept can be so hard to grasp, that I can't make other people feel something because your whole life you have practiced making people feel certain things. And so when somebody confronts you and says you don't have control over someone else's emotions or actions or behavior, or you can't make anybody do anything, a lot of times it's like, no, but I can, because I'm really good at it. But it's always their choice. It is always their choice. And I guarantee that not even 75% of the situations that you wanted to people please and you wanted someone to feel a certain way, they actually felt that way.
Or they may have for a very finite period of time, right? And that's not necessarily sustainable for them.
Exactly. But the point is that means that you're really good at opening doors for people to feel a certain way. And sometimes those people walked through those doors and chose to feel that way, and sometimes they didn't.
Right.
And sometimes it might have looked like, would you just get off me?
Right. So I think
that happens too.
Yeah, I think one thing that you're really amazing at doing, and that you do so well, is this concept of creating space. So, that's a term that we use a lot, but it's not necessarily something that I think is part of everyday conversation. And even if you're not using that vocabulary, you're not using that verbiage, there might be ways that you're doing that and not knowing it. For example, when a friend comes to you and just wants to vent, and you listen and you give them the time and your attention to do that, that's an incredible example of creating space, right? When we have conversations with people as a human resources professional, a lot of times it's incumbent upon me to listen to what employees and managers are going through without any judgment. I'm not there to say you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong until I have all the facts in the situation, right? And we might then have to make some judgment about how we're going to move forward. But the magic happens when you ask a lot of questions and you stay very curious without releasing or offering your judgment in that moment. And I think that's an incredible way that you create space, and I think you're sort of the expert at that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there, but
Yeah, I think create space can be maybe not in a lot of people's vocabulary, so it's good to define things. If any of my clients are watching out there, you know exactly what it's like to experience what she's talking about, but even in a like fine-tuned, magnified portion. And they also know that we define words, that we define phrases, so that we know exactly what we're talking about. I know, the other person knows. We do it in our relationship too.
absolutely.
What did you mean by fill in the blank?
Right.
And so creating space literally can be emotional space, mental space, physical space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of taking yourself out of the equation.
Not that you don't matter.
No,
but
not
just
that you
for
don't
the
matter.
moment saying,
But you literally take yourself out of the equation and give that person, if it's emotional space, you sit and you listen. And you really, really listen. Not through how it affects you, but how it's affecting the other person. If it's physical space that they need,
back up.
hey, I'm going to give you some physical space or some time. I think we use time.
Yeah, we do use time.
Because the word space can be triggering. Sometimes
Yep.
people associate that with
A
breakups.
breakup, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's want to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's mental space, sometimes it's like shutting off stimulation.
Yeah, put your cell phone down.
Yeah, just
not right this second.
keep watching. And so it's really important to define those words, especially when you and I first started dating, kind of getting back on track of our story of how we met. When you and I first started dating, we spent actually quite a bit of time defining some of the words.
Absolutely.
Space was one of them.
Absolutely. That's
Because-
very true for both of us.
I mean, I said I needed space.
Yeah.
And you were like, wait, I thought we had a good thing going. And I said, no. What I mean by space is just some time to breathe by myself and really settle into what's happening here and make sure that the feelings I feel are my feelings. That I'm not just flattered that you find me attractive and you find me intriguing and all the
wildly
things.
Intelligent.
So I would take a few days by myself to just kind of settle into my feelings. Our pup is settling into her feelings.
She is letting us know how she feels
Yes.
about the lack of treats over the last 4 minutes.
This is usually our cuddle time at night, and she's, I think, being very vocal that we're not cuddling at the moment.
She
So
has opinions.
yes, she does, and we love her.
And we'll create space for that in a minute.
Exactly. So kind of getting back to where we were talking about our meeting and kind of like all like little serendipitous things that happened. So this book was one of them. We were both really intentionally and consciously creating this relationship because in my past relationships, the physical part had moved very, very quickly. And I'm a very emotional, very deep, touchy-feely kind of person. And the physical part of a relationship can really bulldoze the rest.
Can distract you.
It distract you.
Yeah.
It can blind you to the rest of the things.
Right.
And so I wanted to be very, very conscious going into this relationship about that. So we slowed that down quite a bit.
Yep.
We
talked about it.
We talked about it. I had no idea how to bring the conversation up. And literally the next date we went on, we were sitting in her car and she was like, look, I just got out of something serious.
Yeah.
Like, we need to make sure that, like, this is a good thing going on. Once things become physical, we're committed. Like, no other people are involved, like, sexually and all the things. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God you're saying all this.
Physical activity meant exclusivity for me. And that was really important to define. But it did create an opportunity and create space for us to have a variety of conversations about boundaries, about expectations, about what does exclusivity mean, right? And I'm not judging anybody. Maybe being in a relationship with multiple people is what you want to do. For me, that was not right in the moment, and I had no idea. I mean, I just knew that we met at a bar, and I was wildly interested, and we saw each other Friday, then next Friday, then the next Sunday, and I didn't know what happened in between, and it was quite frankly none of my business. But we needed to um, move forward in a way that was comfortable for both of us. And I think really creating time for intentional conversation about what is it that I'm trying to cultivate? What is it that, are my hard boundaries, my non-negotiables, as you said earlier? The other thing that was really helpful for me in that process was kind of checking in with my relationship accountability partners. There were a few people, my best friend, my mom, that had seen me go through these previous relationships and different times and phases in my life, starting different jobs, saying, I'm really going to hold true to this, and I'm going to draw this boundary, and I'm not going to work 80 hours a week, or I'm not going to, only do what she wants to do, and then I just lose myself. And so I was also checking in with them, right? And being really honest and reflective about how I was showing up, making sure that I had a mechanism that was right for me. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's, some other mechanism, but I had a mechanism in place for me that allowed me to create the accountability that I had set forth as a requirement for myself. And so, that was automatically something that I was doing for myself, to stay true to the goals that I had set, the intentions that I had set, and that just made it all the more important and critical, really, that we had those conversations, because it created this continuum or experience where if I was having a conversation with my mom that I wasn't having with Raina, then that felt off. If I was having a conversation with Raina that I wasn't then gut checking, and all the details aren't necessarily something you share with your mother, but tapping into these are the things that I set, these are the intentions that I laid out. Am I being true to those? Am I upholding those for myself? And then talking about those openly and sharing those reflections.
Yeah, I think what we were really doing in those moments and those conversations that were most in your car after our dates.
I didn't lock her in there.
We were really, really showing each other who we are.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, this is me. Is that something you're okay with?
Right.
Okay, great. This is also me.
Right.
And it wasn't, I think in my younger years, I would figure out who you wanted me to be, and then I would fill those shoes.
Right.
And then about 6 months or like a year later, I felt super lost and not like unseen by the person I was with, and I didn't understand why they didn't see me or know me. And I realized that was kind of a pattern of, I wanted to be the person that you liked.
Right.
I wanted to fill that role for you, because then that meant, I was worthy or something.
Right. I think Taylor Swift wrote a song about that. All joking aside, and the wise words of Taylor. But yeah, I think it's really important for us to not only be checking in with one another, but also checking in with ourselves and having those important conversations. And I will say, as I was talking to my mom about this, I was home in Louisiana visiting her, and we went to church, and I was having conversation with some of her good friends, and they had found each other later in life, and they had actually worked together for years prior, and they said, okay, here's our best relationship advice. Before any formal commitment is made, get as many bottles of wine as you need to drop all the pretense. Tell each other everything that you would be later embarrassed for your partner to find out if you hadn't told them yourself. And just tell them. Lay it out on the line. This is who I am. I did this thing in high school. Maybe I have a record. I have a dog that doesn't stop barking. Whatever it is, right? And I don't have a criminal record, but we and we're not the worst thing we've ever done. So no judgment there either.
Absolutely.
But the point was to, and I didn't feel like I needed to be inebriated in order to have that conversation, but I certainly felt like we needed to develop some rapport, that there was enough space for that. And so when the time was right, I suggested that to Raina. And I said, I really want to hear the deepest, darkest, scariest things. And then I get to decide, right? So we have this conversation, and then we have at least minimum of 24 to 48 hours apart, and just digest.
Yeah.
And make sure that that's something that is not a deal breaker. For me, I had some deal breakers that I thought were kind of silly, but really critically important to me. I had to be willing to live with a dog because at the time she was my number one.
And she still is, just in the fur department.
The canine form, right? And smoking, I could not handle that.
Yeah.
And again, no judgment, but no matter how small, or no physical abuse, or no not mixing finances until you're married, or whatever it is, right? Whatever you think that person may judge you for, or was a value that you had compromised in a previous relationship, let's get it all out on the table. Let's talk about it, and let's create space for that to be something that you either accept, and then you're accepting all of me, or you say, hey, let me ask some questions, let me get curious, let me create space for that. But let's see if this is something that is okay.
Yeah. And we did that.
Right.
You want to see if she wants to sit on the sofa? Yeah. We did that. So after she told me about these friends that said this was like the best advice ever, I thought, okay, well, let's do that. And funny enough, I guess I sounded very urgent in one of my text messages. It was a Thursday night. I do remember that. And you were working out.
I was at the gym.
Yep. She was at the gym working out. And I must have sounded very urgent in my text, but it was more of like a suggestion, and I want to set some time to do that. And she was like, okay, great. I'll be there in 45 minutes.
I did. I showered at the gym, which is a thing I don't do. But I did.
Which I loved. I loved. I was like, okay,
let's go.
great.
Let's
Like, this is super important to you.
Right now.
Because it's also important to me because, if anybody who's super close to me watching right now, you are probably reeling through all the different lives I've had before this one, and all of the very extravagant, dangerous sort of ups and downs I have had in my past. Can be very frightening for a lot of people. Mental health stuff in my past was sort of a concern for me because, I needed somebody who really understood what mental health was about and how important it is. And somebody who, a year down the road, if I, fall into depression during the winter, which happens sometimes, wasn't going to be like, well, come on, buck up. And so she came over and I just poured my heart out. We didn't do any bottles of wine though. I thought that was...
we didn't. We missed that one.
We missed that part. But we just sat there and I just told her all of my, deep, dark past that, a lot of people could judge me on. They could. And it just really created some space for another spot for us to say, hey, this is me.
Yeah.
And in a way that is grounded and self-assured, and not, hey, this is me to get someone else's approval, but hey, this is me to know that if you choose to move forward, this is what you're getting.
Right.
And we chose to move forward.
We did. It was the best decision that I've certainly ever made. But I think this brings us to an interesting point where, it's been such a pleasure sharing our story and some things that were really important to the beginning of our relationship. And, we're toying with this idea of talking about our relationship and sharing relationship advice and the things that we've learned over the years. And we would love to share the story of our first fight. because that was pretty great.
That
So
was incredible.
if you've enjoyed this and you want to hear more, like, share, and follow. We appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. We hope that our story brought moments of joy and hope, and from the deepest depths of our hearts, we hope that you are able to grow and experience joy in 2023. That is our family goal.
It is.
And we hope that there are others sharing in that movement.